Tonight Show! I'm your host, Tyler Schneider. We have a special show for you tonight. We have the latest and greatest actor, Connor Hart is here! Yeah! As you can see, we had a bit of a studio change, so the background in studio is going to look a lot different. But that doesn't stop us. The show must go on here on the Tonight Show. We have a great show in store for you tonight. We're going to look back at the year 2016. Now, when most people think of this year, they think how terrible it was and nothing good came out of it. But we're going to look on the good side, and we're going to look at the film industry. We had two groundbreaking films hit the market. These include The Picture of Dorian Gray and Brave New World, both based on the previous books written. Now, Connor Hart, the actor coming out, acted in both these films, and he was praised for his work, being voted the best actor of 2016. And it'll be interesting to get his perspective and his viewpoint on both of these films. So normally this is the part of the show where I crack all the jokes and entertain the crowd. But tonight, based on our studio situation, a lack of technology and lack of a teleprompter, I'm not going to pull that off. Instead, tonight I'm just going to cut right to the chase. We're going to get Connor Hart right in here. So without further ado, let's welcome Connor Hart to the stage!
How's it going, Tyler?
Going great. How's it going?
Yeah, you know, same old, same old.
So what a year it was.
Well, I had 2 successful movies, and I made it through the year without dying like half the other celebrities, so I guess it was a year.
So how about Actor of the Year? How did it feel?
You know, that really surprised me. Like, the books that the movies were based off of weren't really that big, so I thought, you know, they're going to be, like, somewhat successful, but I didn't think they were going to be as successful as they ended up being. And I didn't really think my role was as pivotal to the movie as it ended up being.
Yeah, because in Brave New World you played, who'd you play? You played John Savage, and in Dorian Gray you played...
Dorian, the main character.
Yes. So that really boosted your career, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. So, the first film that you made was Brave New World, where you played John. And going into the film, how did you prepare to be John? Because, you know, nothing along these films was ever made before. There was no sequel. What'd you do?
So, I read through the book because I thought that would allow me to play the character to the best of my ability. And, you know, really make sure that the movie paid respect to the creativity of the author. And, you know, I did my own interpretation of John. So John is pretty much like the opposite of the ideal citizen of the world state. He is controlled by his emotions, he's very religious, he's really into literature.
Especially Shakespeare.
Right, and that's also kind of why I wanted to play him, because I myself have a love for Shakespeare. And then he's really just an outsider in the society, which made him so interesting to play. And
because he was the only one born with a mother compared to everyone else in the society.
Right, you know, and that's totally unheard of in the world state. Everyone's created in a test tube, essentially.
Yes.
And, you know, this actual human, for a lack of a better explanation, like really throws off how the world state works. And, you know, the fact that he's so much of an outsider, I really related to, because I grew up in Iowa and on a small farm.
Away from the big city, away from Hollywood.
Right, so playing this character really kind of went home with me, because he's just so different from everyone else, and that's kind of how I felt at first.
Yeah, so finally, every actor loves their ending. And John, he definitely had his ending, didn't he?
Oh yeah, you know, John ends up being so overwhelmed by being an outsider and how different he is in the world state that he ends up killing himself. And
yeah.
It's pretty crazy. His last scene before that, where there's a whole like mob surrounding him essentially, and he's just getting all this attention that he's not used to. And I think that's kind of what drives him to it. He's not used to, I guess, the uniformity of the society. Yeah.
So throughout the movie, it was real evident that Dorian is affected and lives his life through aestheticism, basically.
Right. So aestheticism is the belief that appearance is the most valuable thing of anything. So with some influence from Lord Henry, Dorian ends up accepting aestheticism to be his own and lives his life by it. So he ends up seeing this painting that his friend Basil had painted of him, and it's so good that he becomes jealous of it, because it will never age and he will.
Yeah.
and he is prompted to make this wish to that he would stay young forever when he sees it, and that ends up taking his soul and putting it into painting.
Dorian, throughout the whole movie, is influenced by a ton of things. He's influenced by Shakespeare. He's influenced by Lord Henry. And did this inspire you to want to take his role? Did you like this?
Yeah, it was kind of similar to why I chose to play John. First of all, Dorian really enjoys Shakespeare. He goes to plays a lot.
Yeah.
And not necessarily Shakespeare, but literature. Lord Henry gives him the book, and he ends up obsessing over it for quite a while. And the love for literature is just, that's also why I chose to play John. And the fact that he's such a blank slate at the beginning, and his character just manifests throughout the story, rather than with most forms of movies and books and things, where it just gives you this character and you know their character since day one. You can predict what they're gonna do, and there isn't much development. Whereas with Dorian, he starts and ends as a completely different character.
Oh yeah. It seems that the two characters are real similar, and I was just wondering, did the similarity between John and Dorian factor into you signing for the part to act Dorian because they're so similar? Were you inspired to take on the role?
Yeah, a little bit. While they are similar, they do have some differences. For example, like the aestheticism part, whereas Dorian lives his life by aestheticism, John is kind of like the opposite of it, because John is influenced heavily by his emotions and literature, right? So he is like the total opposite of it, because he's focused on the deeper meaning of everything, rather than just the appearance.
Yes. But other than that, they do have a ton of similarities.
Right.
They start off, they both have abnormal birth situations compared to the society they live in. Like John is born with a mother, unlike any other citizen in the society. Dorian is born where his mother actually dies, and he's raised by his grandfather.
And his father was like a soldier, and the interclass relationship was unheard of in his society.
And do you think that both of these weird upbringings as a family affected their lives later on?
Most definitely, yeah. We already kind of talked about John earlier, but with Dorian, he kind of grew up being raised by nannies. He didn't really have parents, and that definitely played into his ignorance and just how blank his slate was at the beginning.
Yep.
Because being raised by his grandfather, I believe it was, just kept him really sheltered, and he had no experience in anything really.
Now, not only did they have weird birth situations, you could call it, but they were also, they left women due to the lack of individuality.
Yeah.
Like John, to start off with, was really into Lenina, but he just couldn't put up with her after her obsession over Soma and her lack of free thought. So John broke up with Lenina, and Dorian broke up with Sybil because she had a lack of free thought and emotion as well. He had first seen her act, and he thought she was the greatest actor in the world based on the emotion that she could play with these characters. And then she met Dorian, and Dorian completely changed her life around and almost took all of her emotion out of her acting, and that basically propelled Dorian into not liking her anymore.
Right, and it can also be linked back to his aestheticism, because he was looking at her for her acting rather than who she really was.
Exactly.
So yeah, they have that similarity as well. So like we briefly covered earlier, John and Dorian also both end up killing themselves at the end of the books and movies, and they're for fairly similar reasons.
They were both fueled by
self-hate, essentially. Yeah. John he ends up being kind of absorbed into the society, and like
He hates it.
he hates the society, but he also ends up hating himself. He gets
Exactly.
somewhat conflicted.
Yes.
And Dorian hates how the painting has changed, which
It reflects all his sins.
right.
He doesn't want the
Yeah.
burden of living with it anymore.
He doesn't feel he can like redeem himself. So in a fit of rage, he ends up stabbing the painting and
Kills himself.
kills
and then,
himself. So
similar to John, in a fit of rage, he ends up hanging himself. Both
Right.
end up dying.
So we could talk about these topics forever, but unfortunately the producers chime in my ear. We're coming up on the 12 o'clock start time. So it's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Hart.
pleasure to be here.
Hope you'll be back on the show sometime. And to all the fans out there, good night, and check out Brave New World and Picture of Dorian Gray. You can get them in paperback copies or watch the movie. Thank you.
Hey.